Hey friend, so in one of my most recent videos, I talked about, I think about 7 different personality systems and kind of like an introduction and how what each one can help you to do and the learning curve of each to help you if you are new to personality, to help you know where to even start, based on what your unique needs are right now or where you are in, if you're a very beginner with this stuff, if you're wanting something a bit more complex. And so you can check out that video here, and I highly recommend that you watch that first, because in this video I'm going to use myself as an example and talk about my personality type and each of these different systems and a little bit about how I went about discovering my own personality type. And in that video I also talked about how you can loosely line up some of them, of like, oh, if you're this in this personality system, then you might be this, or it's like, comparative to this. But there are some nuanced differences, and so you'll also see that here of how, I may have put in one category, like these ones are generally, like they're loosely similar, but I might be this one, but then a different type and a different system. It'll make sense in a second, and if you watch that other video. But yeah, I just wanted to use myself as an example in case that might be helpful. I personally love watching things like that or talking with people and hearing about their journeys of learning more about themselves, and also so you can get to know me a little better. So I'm gonna go make myself some peppermint tea, and then let's get real about my personality types. Okay, so if you have not downloaded it yet, I have this free little cheat sheet so you can reference that. I printed mine out, but if you want to just reference it on your phone, on your laptop, that might be helpful. You can get it by joining my email list. I have a link down below, and I send out an email maybe once a month. I don't want to spam people, but so you can keep up to date on my latest videos and my posts and news and good free resources. So deep breath, inhale the peppermint. Okay, so what do we start with? Let's look. So let's start with DiSC. This one I was not as familiar with. I have my laptop with me so I can refer to my report here. I just recently took this assessment this year with my coach Andy Mort. Check him out. I've got links to him down below. It's something that he uses with his clients, and I was really excited because this is not one that I've taken before, because you have to pay for it. So let's see here. I am a precisionist, a CS, which is conscientiousness, steadiness. So the C style, it says, have you ever worked with someone who is factual, thorough, and detail-oriented? Some people are precise, sensitive, and analytical. And then the S style says, do you have family members who are good listeners and great team players? Some people are steady, loyal, and practical. So those are my 2 main CS. Yeah, I really enjoyed this assessment. It seemed like pretty good questions and help narrow it down. And it also then, if you have the full report, it shows you whether you're very high to very low on each of these styles. And it gives some great advice and tips on working with Anna, because if you remember from my video where I talked about it, DiSC is mainly used by different employers and in work settings to see how you can best work together, how to communicate with each other well, so you can develop good teamwork skills with different kinds of people. So it says that with high C style, Anna is a fact finder who does things by the book. Anna can be sensitive if others are being critical of their work. True, especially if they have not carefully reviewed all the data. Ooh. Anna clarifies expectations before undertaking new projects and works hard to meet standards. This is true. Anna will typically maintain a neat and orderly work environment. Key their work environment, maybe not quite my house and my personal space, but you better believe everything's organized with my work. Then I also had the very high S style. So Anna values close personal relationships. That's true. And will often take a back seat to the needs and desires of those who are loyal friends. Also true. Anna is an even-paced individual who thrives in a peaceful, harmonious environment. Very true. Anna will work to avoid conflict and sudden changes in lifestyle and finds joy in keeping tradition. I can be a little bit sentimental. I do like to shake things up sometimes, but overall, as long as there's peace and harmony, we good. And then I had low I style, and very low D style. So with the I, Anna prefers a rational and moderate approach when first entering new situations and tries to avoid extremes. Anna likes the company of others, but is equally comfortable spending a quiet evening alone. Probably more comfortable. Anna is a realist who will always weigh options before making a decision to move ahead and thinks through alternatives and choices carefully. Yep. Kind of not very much of a risk taker. We're working on that. I mean, here we go. Doing YouTube. And then with the D, very, very low D intensity, Anna would prefer things to stay the same rather than to risk a new venture. Unless it is proven and true. See, there we go. Anna is typically peaceful and low-key and is usually seen by associates as a good friend and listener. Anna tends to adopt a wait-and-see attitude rather than taking charge of a situation, usually preferring to let others take the lead. This is very true. I'm the kind of person where, like, if no one else is taking charge, you know, and we need to get stuff done, I will eventually step up and I will lead, but I'm kind of like a reluctant leader. I lead when necessary, but I, like, almost always just, like, someone else can take the lead here, someone else can be in charge and have the responsibility. I will if necessary, and if things are not working well, I will make sure we get it done. But I will do so very kindly and gently. So yeah, this report is awesome because it has pages upon pages. Let's see here, 15 pages that gives so much good, helpful stuff. And another thing that I really liked about this report is that it shows the public self or mask versus the private self and the core versus the perceived self, the mirror. And so one thing that I thought was interesting and very accurate is that my public self comes off a lot more as the S, which is the more, we'll talk about it later, the golden retriever, the friendly, calm people person, the loyal, you know, friend. That's what I put forth, you know, so that's why people often think that I'm a lot more outgoing than I actually am, because, like, I want to be friendly and I want to be kind and make you feel comfortable and happy and safe. So, but then the private self is definitely, the C is above the S, because that's who I really am at my core. So, like, I'm the perfectionist, but I will kind of hide it. I will be more critical of myself, and if I need, like, if I see, like, because I genuinely care and I want things to be, you know, from a distance perspective, like, I want things to go well and be as excellent as they can be, but then also because I care about the other person. So I do have that bent to try to help other people be the best that they can be and achieve excellence, but I will always lead with kindness and gentleness and trying to keep harmony and avoid conflict, but, you know, when it's necessary for the betterment of, you know, the group project or the world, or, you know, then I'll address things. So yeah, as I talked about in my earlier video, if you want to learn about your DiSC personality, I think you can purchase it through the website, or, you know, there's some coaches who are trained and can give you the assessment, and Andy Moore is one of them again, and I have his link down below. Alright, so next we have the color code, and so with that one I am actually a blue-white, which, if you remember from my other video, you would think that I would be a white-blue, because white has a stronger similarity with the C personality in DiSC, and blue has more in common with the S. And remember, I'm a CS, but with the color code, I'm a blue-white. And so as a refresher, the color code, it's about the motivations. So red is most motivated by power, yellow is most motivated by fun, blue, which is my top one, is most motivated by intimacy, and then white is most motivated by peace. And so this is a test I took online, I think back in college, so it's been quite a while now. I took a free online test. I think one of my mentors had recommended it to me, and, you know, always want to get in and take as many personality tests as I can and know myself, and love to have conversations so we can compare and contrast with friends. But with the free version of this test, you can find out, I think, either just maybe your first or your second of the colors, and then I actually did go ahead and I paid for the full version, which was actually pretty good. Like, I thought then it like gives you analysis of, you know, like the piece of the pie, how much percentage are you more motivated by this one than this one than this one than this one. And, you know, it gives you so many good resources on relationships, like, oh, blue with a blue, blue with a white, blue with a this, and like just comparing it all, and, you know, all that good stuff about careers and life and relationships, and which is quite helpful. And it's another one that I recommend for people just getting started, because you only have to worry about 4 instead of like 16, you know. It's a little bit more simplistic, but it's just a really good one to help get you started. So I think what the difference was for me in being a blue-white instead of a white-blue was that I am more motivated by you know, close relationships, and so sometimes that means having to actually sacrifice peace in order to create stronger bonds. So sometimes you have to say the hard things and talk about the difficult things in order to grow. And, you know, I love Brené Brown's work, and she talks about how, you know, true belonging comes when you can actually be yourself and accepted. You know, it's not when you fit into a group, but when you actually can be yourself and still be loved and accepted. And so that's why you know, I'm more motivated by the intimacy rather than peace, because I know that sometimes you have to break some peace to find that true intimacy. And again, so that's something that motivates me more, is that intimacy. But then here we're gonna flip-flop again with Gary Smalley, which is another one that I recommend if you are just getting started. Gary Smalley and the Color Code are both, they have free tests available, and so that's a good place to get started, so you don't have to pay for anything. And again, it's just like 4 personality types versus like 16, so it's easier to grasp, and, you know, colors are easier to remember. Animals are used in Gary Smalley, so that's a lot easier to remember than like 1, 2, 3 or letters, you know. So if you're just getting started, these are really good ones. But with the Gary Smalley assessment, which is more about strengths and weaknesses, in that assessment it gives you a list of words, and you're supposed to choose which one you resonate with more, you know, which one you are stronger in versus versus the others, and then you rate each of them, and that's how you figure out which animal you are. And I scored beaver, golden retriever. Those are my top 2, and I found it interesting that beaver and golden retriever were quite close for me. And then there was like a huge gap between the other 2, but then those bottom 2 were kind of close, otter, lion. And so that's where I have, that's where the DiSC and Gary Smalley line up pretty accurately with me of, you know, because beaver and conscientiousness, golden retriever and steadiness, otter and influence, lion and dominance, and that's my order in both of them. And so I there's not much to say here, because it's very similar to DiSC of, you know, beaver is more of the accurate, you know, conscientious, trying to, they work hard and they want things done well. And then the golden retriever, which is the lovable, friendly, calm, loyal, you know, friend, listener, you know, all those kind of friendly, relational, like IF personality types, if you know Myers-Briggs. And it's a little bit funny to me, because I feel like most people would think that I was an SC and a Golden Retriever Beaver, and again, they are very close, very, very close. But there's always just that little bit more bent towards wanting excellence and being a good person, and just a little bit above all that relational goodness, which we'll talk about more when we get to the Enneagram, because that will make a lot more sense, and I'll talk about that more then. So next we have the 5 love languages, and this was developed by Gary Chapman. It's all about how we best give and receive love, and he talks about in his book about how, all of these things can make us feel loved, but if we aren't getting our primary love language met, we can still feel like something's missing, like we just aren't feeling as satisfied. And so for me, my top love language is quality time. I feel the most loved when people want to spend time with me. And in the book, he talks about how there's the 2 different dialects of quality conversation and quality activity. And so for me, I do enjoy both, but I especially feel loved and feel filled when people want to talk to me. When you have like quality conversation, when we get to go, not just surface level, though that still is filling too, to have just those fun, silly conversations or talking about things that we enjoy. But I love getting into hopes and dreams and fears and struggles, and just really getting to know people on a deeper level. I just feel so much love when someone wants to understand me and how my mind works. And then I just love showing love too by asking people deep questions, and just I want to know everything about how they tick, how their mind works. That's how I love, and that's how I feel most loved. And then second for me is the words of affirmation. I am so easily encouraged. Like, I've joked with some friends that, like, I'm really easy to please. Just, like, I'm like a puppy. Just, like, pat me on the head, give me some treats, and give me some praise, and I'm good to go. Like, it's almost scary how much words affect me. But it works in my favor when it's, like, when someone just says, good job, I'm just, like, the happiest in the world. If someone just, when you leave me comments on my YouTube videos, I want you to know that it means more to me than you probably understand. I often screenshot a lot of them. I have an album on my phone named Encouragement, where, whenever I'm having a bad day, I can just go back and look at all of these things that people have said to me that were kind and encouraging. It really makes my day, whether it's someone saying, I love you, I'm proud of you, good job on this, I really like the way you did this. It really fills me up. And later I'll talk about my Enneagram type. Spoiler alert, I'm the Enneagram 1, the perfectionist, and so I have a very harsh inner critic. I also have depression and anxiety, so that all sometimes can just make it hard to sometimes see the good in myself. And so I especially then appreciate kind words from anyone, but especially when it comes from people that I love and respect, those close to me. It can just really turn my day around and help me see from a better perspective, because I will find the one thing wrong in a video or something that I'm doing, and so it helps me see things more accurately when people encourage me or just give affirmation and like, okay, yeah, this is where you can work on something, you actually did this well, so stop being so hard on yourself, is usually what they end up saying. Third for me is physical touch. I'm a very huggy, cuddly person. I almost feel uncomfortable when I'm close to someone who is not a hugger, because I'm just like, I want to respect your boundaries, but I want to hug you. Like, if I love someone, I just want to, like, come a little Pikachu. I just want to hug them. I just want to hold them close. I just want to sit close to them. And man, especially during the pandemic, like, and you can't see people, and so, sometimes you can get some of that quality time through video calls or something, but it's still just not the same. And it just made my little physical touch loving heart very sad that I couldn't just even sit across from another human being and, even just like putting a hand on the shoulder, just like, I can see you. You are in hand distance from me. Just, I don't know. It makes me happy. And then my top 3 are actually pretty close. But then my last 2 are gifts and acts of service. But I mean, like, all of these mean so much to me. If someone gives me, I think it's really more of like, I appreciate thoughtful gifts. I don't like just gifts for gifts' sake. But when it's like, oh, this made me think of you, or I know that you like this, or I especially appreciate like handmade gifts, someone's artsy or crafty and they make me things. That does mean a lot to me, but I think it's more of like, it kind of comes to, I guess, the quality time of like, they spent time thinking about me. I think it's even more so that than the thing itself. And then acts of service, I don't know. I think I just feel weird sometimes when people do things for me, but I've learned to appreciate it more, especially because my ISFJ husband, he loves people the most by doing acts of service, and I appreciate him so much, like, where I'm the person that's often aware of, like, I don't know, like, people's emotional state and their personal development journeys, and, like, that's how I focus on helping and loving other people. He just, like, he is really good at seeing the physical needs of others and stepping up to do that, and he does a lot of, like, the cooking for us, and he'll take care of things when he knows that I'm stressed and have a busy day. And so even though that's last on my list, I've come to appreciate it so much more because of my husband and how he's cared for me and loved me and helped me to, it's like his support, his way of supporting my dreams and believing in me is taking care of that for me. So I do appreciate it, even though it's on the bottom of my list. But quality time, I'm reading the list here. Quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, gifts, and acts of service, in that order for me. I guess this would be a good time to say comment down below if you know your type in any of these systems that I've talked about. I would love to hear it, so comment down below to tell me your love languages or your colors or DiSC styles or animals. Share it down below. Let's start a conversation. But I guess that's a thing to note here, is that Gary Chapman talks about it in his book, about how, you can feel loved by all of these, but if your primary love language isn't getting met, then the other ones, you just still feel like something's missing. So, if my husband was only doing acts of service and, like, never spending time with me, then, or, like, words of affirmation, never saying I love you, that would, like, I'd start to be like, oh, like, I appreciate the things you do for me, but I'm still just not feeling very loved right now. And so, like, that's the thing with, that's why this can be so helpful, because it can sometimes be confusing of like, oh, they do so much for me, but like, why am I still feeling like something's missing? That might be why. Maybe it's because quality time or words of affirmation is your top love language, and so that's something that's very important to you. And if you're someone like me who hates having needs and feels bad for having needs, I'm here to tell you and remind you that it's human. It's like we all have these different needs, so don't feel bad for that. And don't let others make you feel bad for that. They might just have a different love language, and so they may not understand why you need something so much, but it is valid. And this is a great way to start that conversation with people and helping them understand that we all are different and we all have different ways of best receiving love, of feeling love from other people. And then one last little note, a little tidbit for you, is that just because something is your top love language for receiving love, it might not be the way that you most naturally communicate love. Oftentimes that is the same, because, it's like, oh, well, I feel most loved by this, and so that's how I'm gonna love this person, but that's not always the case. Like, for example, and I think this is a very, a very male thing, not for everyone, but, so, for example, my husband, he loves people, he shows love by acts of service. He doesn't always, he feels a little bit uncomfortable if people, like, try to do things for him back. Like, that's but his top love language his first or second top love language is words of affirmation. So it's like he loves people by doing things for them, and he's not looking for something like for them to help him back, but like he just wants to know that it was appreciated, like a thank you, or like, hey, I appreciate you for doing that. He just wants to be recognized. That's how he feels love, of when people notice and appreciate the things that he does for them. So just wanted to share that in case, that's because that's something that sometimes can be confusing, because when I first found out my husband's love language, I thought like, oh, I'm gonna have to, like, I struggle to do acts of service because my brain just doesn't think that way. I think of like, oh, how can I encourage them? How can I, let's spend time together and have conversation. And but again, we're all different. So there you go.